Come on down front. Thank you all for coming. This is a very, very special day. In case you haven't noticed, there's a little bit of a Swedish Christmas theme around here for obvious reasons. I always knew that Christmas was coming when the Bundes cheese came out. I have some more Swedish background for you. This is a tomte. I think I said that right? Tomte. The earliest Swedish folklore has it that these sprite-like figures guarded homesteads and farms. And they've since evolved into a more modern version of Santa, but the oldest version, I think, is the tomte, like this. And Wikipedia says, the Swedish name tomte is indeed derived from the term for a place of residence and area of influence, the home. How fitting. Our tomte has been working overtime in recent weeks and months, assuring the support of the foundations which gave birth to our program, which included the Sheldon Foundation, the Lene Foundation, the Dara Foundation, Carnegie & Jackson, Northern Chautauqua Community Foundation, and of course the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation, also the Johnson Foundation, and then the Johnson Foundation for why we're here today. But most importantly, tomtes all over Chautauqua County are very happy today because we're bringing the best possible medical care to the residents of Chautauqua County where they deserve it and where they need it most, in their homes. The home is where the heart is, and that's where we're delivering palliative care. Here's to your tomte. So on that note, I'd like to introduce Ron Sellers, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Hospice Chautauqua County.
I'd like to introduce a couple of people before I say what I'm going to say. We have Mayor Wortelman here from Lakewood, Jackie Sherrock, Jackie, where are you? Representing Congressman Tom Reed, and Rick Vian, who represents Univera. Rick is the Vice President for Medical Affairs at Univera Healthcare, and they have been instrumental in working with us in developing a contract to provide palliative care under a commercially insured product to every one of their members, which is marvelous. It's like opening the door, and people are going to get very, very excellent care as a result of the partnership. Thank you, Rick. I had a script, but a couple of weeks ago we received from Mary Rappel a bit of history. I think it came via email to Shona, among other stuff. And it has listed a proposal being made to a foundation to help propel what was the volunteer service of Chautauqua County, Cancer Volunteer Service of Chautauqua County, into a certified, Medicare certified hospice. The original board members who steered that were Don Ray, who I believe is Don, was the board chair. Marvin Cole was vice chair. John Bellotti was treasurer. Patricia Kennedy was secretary. Board members were Sandra Brown, Jane Campbell, Sister Corona, yes, Dr. Collins, Barbara Engdahl, Linda Eric, Christine Herbst, Frederick Holst, Jackie Johnson, Mildred Livingston, who was wonderful staff support, I understand, back then when this got started, Valerie Lewis, Luann McCoy, Mac McCoy, Dr. Rappel, Bert Rappel, Harry Sands, Patricia Schultz, Rowena Vanstrom, and Marilyn Wilson. Also it lists the staff, the 5 people who worked during the transition period. Susan Schwartz, Patty Idzik, Catherine Beater, Judy Prispilla, and Leslie Johnson. It's not very often you can go back and see the roots all in one place. And here we are today, another turn of the page, a new generation, broader programs, local access to service, and high-quality service. So end-of-life care is growing, 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 and getting deeper, deeper, deeper. So it's marvelous. Now for the formal remarks. Everyone knows I'm long-winded, but I won't be. It's our pleasure to welcome all of you to the unveiling of this plaque to my right, commemorating the generous gift from the Johnson Foundation to support the continuing development and growth of the John A. and Oscar Johnson Palliative Care Program of Chautauqua County. So we can unveil the plaque. And to Mr. and Mrs. Selstrom, thanks don't even begin to come close.
Well, may I hand you the check?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This man needs no introduction, but his wife isn't with us. John and Carol Selstrom have been pillars of our community and supporters of all good things in our community, and it's just a high honor to be added to the long list of causes you support.
Thank you, Andy. He mentioned Tumkas. I have to tell you that when we went to Sweden, which was often years ago, we always came back with a ton of Tumkas. And we have them all over our house, and I don't know how many Carol's got, but it must be at least 100. But so it's become a tradition in our family at Christmas Day or thereabouts that everyone gets a chance to pick out their Tumka to take back with them. So we're gradually getting lower and lower. But hopefully our children are continuing that practice. Well, last summer, Andy, we got together with Andy, start out with, and worked with Shona and Andy and everybody, and we found out a lot more about hospice and about palliative care. And I mentioned to a few people here that this organization fits, we in the law profession talk about it's all on square corners. For all four corners, that means it's pretty good. And this represents one of those organizations that fits on all four corners of a piece of paper. And we're just delighted with the service that you're rendering and delighted with the progress that's been made. And so we got talking about making a gift, or we call them investments, but in the community, and we thought maybe that this would be a wonderful organization to participate in the sunsetting of the Johnson Foundation. We actually will sunset sometime next year in 2016. I think we've had a pretty significant role in the last 20 years of investing John's money. You probably know that the Salvation Army was the principal principal organization that received the entire income, and so they have benefited for the past 20 years. I just have to tell you, give a plug to the Salvation Army. I was chairman of the board at the time that John died, and so that this money came into the Salvation Army. And I suggested to the board at that time that they take half the money, because they were getting, at those days they paid pretty high interest and everybody was happy. But they were, $500,000 was kind of what the income was, or perhaps even more. The board spend half of that in the community, but then send the other half to headquarters in New York City and in their endowment. Because I said at the end of 20 years, they would have become dependent upon this money coming in. And well, they agreed and they did that. And I'm happy to say that they have never taken money out of that. Now they can start to take money out of it, but they have significant amount of money to draw on for the next 20 years. So that worked out really well. But the other charge was to give his principal away, the money, to the many worthy organizations in Chautauqua County. He was a Swedish immigrant. He loved Jamestown. He loved the community. He became an American citizen, but a good part of his life in Jamestown he spent as a Swedish citizen. So he wanted to do well. He had no really relatives left. He had some distant cousins and aunts and uncles, but they were dead, but of children. And so the foundation was set up, and we're happy to say that we have given many millions of dollars in this community, Chautauqua County and Jamestown. That was the principal area that he wanted to concentrate on. We've had requests from all kinds of organizations throughout the United States, even Europe. We've had requests, and we've turned those down, and we've concentrated totally, almost totally on Chautauqua County and the surrounding area. But it's indeed a great pleasure to be with you today, and I thank you very much for the opportunity that we have to give you this money. We wish you well. I think it's a terrific program. Carol cannot join me today. She's got so much to do that just before Christmas she said she just couldn't do it. So she sends her best wishes, and Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thank you, John. I'd like to now introduce Dr. Thomas Putnam, our medical director, and the man who's making the program go.
I want to say right off that end-of-life care, which includes hospice and palliative, is very much based on teamwork. It's not a one-man show by any means. Many times, certainly in both programs, I'm not the key person. I'm not the most helpful person. I'm not the person that people want to see. So I'm privileged to be part of this organization. The quality of staff and the work culture here is the best I probably have ever experienced in my career. And I've been here and abroad in several places. This is a good place for end of life or end of career in my place. I'm proud of the way that with hospice patients we can go in, and our team is very vigorous on getting pain and other symptoms under control. And they also take time over the weeks and months to process difficult decisions in patients' lives and help them and their families. And so palliative care allows us to extend that type of expertise and time to people who have barriers. So I like to see palliative care as breaking down some of the barriers to the quality of care for serious illness of people in our community. Some of the barriers that would keep people from being in our hospice program include the fact that they might not have a 6-month or less prognosis. They might be getting treatments that are extending their life. Some of our patients are at home on very expensive therapies that hospice could not really take on. And so with palliative care, our team can be in place for those folks with difficult decisions and symptoms. Sometimes our patients may be linked to another nursing home agency, and hospice could not be in place with them. Maybe they like the staff so much, or they get so many hours that they would not come on to hospice. And some folks, as I like to say, are hospicious. They're suspicious of what happens when the hospice nurse comes in with the medicine, and you know you're in trouble. So it helps when when patients make that, they turn that corner, they make that bend in the road to decide that their treatment is going to be purely palliative, that it's a quality of life, it's not quantity of life. That's a tremendous change, and it's a big shift. And the patient might make it, but the family is not with them. And you don't make those bends in the road suddenly, or your vehicle will roll over. So it takes time. And what I love as a physician is having that luxury of time. You know, if I were in certain offices, I need to be done with the patient in 5 to 10 minutes and try to go on to the next. Well, that doesn't work at this stage in life. So it's a luxury that I do have the time, and I can sit down with people. And when the medical train is going 90 miles an hour and people are struggling to hang on to life and take every medical option that's there for them, they may not stop to ask, well, what's next? Or what if this doesn't work? And the family may not want to suggest that because it's so negative. And the doctor may not want to suggest that because you're going to take away their hope. But these folks want to talk about this, and we need to bring it up. We need to ask them what next. We need to form a relationship that'll let them bring up these things. Many people ask me, well, what's it going to be like at the end? My cancer's here. One guy got an anatomy chart and said, well, my cancer's here and my other organs are here. What's going to happen next? And people want to know. People are afraid of the pain, that they're going to die in terrible pain, and usually we can help them with that and assure them, hey, there's always more things we can do. So the last question, we need to ask them what's important to you, and what emotional and relational business do you need to take care of at this time in your life. So it's my privilege to be part of this program, and I was pulled into it. Shona will tell you how this came out of a community groundswell, and when I first heard about it, I said, why do we need that? But, I've come around to be grateful for this position. Thank you.
The last is not the least by any means. This next woman is credited with being the architect, the vision. She was the person who spotted this need and who made it happen. And she's our Vice President of Clinical Services, Shona Anderson.
So as we finish, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to take you back to the beginning, because I think that's really important. It was a community-based palliative care program that we sought to create, and I want to help you understand very briefly how it happened. In March 2012, 8 residents of Chautauqua County went to Lexington, Kentucky to learn about palliative care. The 8 individuals were employed by WillCare, Lutheran, Baggett and Laredo Baggett, a private consultant, and Hospice Chautauqua County. All of these agencies believed in this and wanted to see this happen. The group was kind of a motley crowd. We were 4 nurses, a CPA, a social worker, a physician, and a chaplain. And our goal was to create a program that would reduce unnecessary pain and suffering, because we saw it every day. Help people access palliative and hospice care at a more appropriate time in their disease trajectory. I can't tell you how many people died while we were admitting them. How sad. Help people promote discussions and put into place a person's vision of what their disease and ultimately their end-of-life experience should look like. Keep them in their home, wherever that is, and we've been some interesting places. And keep them with their family, however they define family. We had an implementation group. We met faithfully every 2 weeks. Initially, we developed fun things like policies and procedures and forms and care teams and what will a visit look like. We developed an advisory team. And then on July 19th, 2012, the every 2 week meetings changed and they became care planning meetings. We admitted our first person on that date and we started the Palliative Care Program. We did a 6-month pilot and then we said, okay, we're going for it, and we went full bore. We've learned a lot, we've taken missteps, but we recently cared for our 375th person, which is remarkable. So that is, in a nutshell, how we created it. I promised I'd be brief. A palliative care community-based, community-involved, in the community where people want to be for Chautauqua County, that we will now call the John A. and Oscar Johnson Palliative Care Program. And I want to express a very warm thank you to the Johnson Foundation on behalf of all the residents of Chautauqua County. Your generous donation will assure that the mission and the goals that we began back in March of 2012 will continue for those people that will need this kind of care in the future. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Assemblyman Goodell, for coming. I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't introduce the traffic cop, the director of our palliative care program, and the voice, and the coordinator, Lynn Austin. Please take some food with you. We got too much food. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.